This story follows an alien invasion team sent to scout Earth before conquering it. They expect an easy victory against what they believe is a primitive, disorganized species. Instead, they find something completely unexpected. Humans treat warfare like a wild game, full of chaos, humor, and strange rituals. The story explores intense moments of confusion, awe, and growing fear as the aliens try to understand how Earthlings fight with a reckless joy that breaks all known rules of war. The emotional tone is tense and dramatic, with strong visuals of paintball battles turning into unpredictable warfare and deep moments of disbelief and wonder. The stakes are high for both sides. The aliens must decide if Earth is conquerable or a threat unlike any other, while humans unknowingly defend their home with sheer unpredictability and passion. General Volek sat in the small shuttle, watching Earth's blue-green surface grow closer. His amber eyes pulsed softly as he read through the final reports. The Thrax Dominion had conquered 17 worlds with perfect order. Each invasion followed the Codex Bellicus Galacticus, an ancient guide to honorable war. First, they spied from afar. Then, they sent diplomats. If talks failed, they escalated carefully. Victory was certain, and occupation was just a formality. Earth was supposed to be easy. A primitive world, with broken politics and weak military technology. According to the data, humans had no real strategy. The invasion plan should be simple. Volex activated the shuttle's biomechanical cloak as it landed in a quiet forest. His team transformed into human shapes, awkward, but good enough to blend in. He looked at himself in the broken glass of the shuttle's window. Still over 7 feet tall, but now a rough imitation of a human man. His team moved out carefully. Zeke was a woman with dark hair and sharp eyes. Mulder looked like a middle-aged scholar. Grixon was a large, muscular man with a calm expression. They crept toward what their scans showed was a military training ground. What they found was madness. The place looked like a ruined playground. Shipping containers were stacked into towers. Old cars formed walls. Pieces of buildings, a gas station, even part of a school bus had been arranged into a maze. And hundreds of humans ran through it all, yelling, laughing, shooting paintball guns. Some wore camo uniforms, others wore neon shorts or costumes from old Earth movies. One was a zombie. Another wore black armor like a space soldier. They fired paintballs that exploded in bright yellow splashes. "This is their military training?" Mulder asked, confused. Volex frowned. "It looks like a game." The humans shouted phrases full of wild energy. One called himself the Tennessee Terror as he ran, shooting paint behind him and dodging pursuers. His friends cheered as he fell, laughing even as he was killed by paintballs. Zeke's scanners struggled. Their weapons are civilian. Their ammo is paint. They treat it like play. But their skill and energy, unmatched. Volex frowned. "Observe and learn. We must understand." They moved closer and met the Chaos Coordinator, a woman named Raven with purple hair and a sharp grin. She welcomed them to the Blood Splatter Fest, a 3-day paintball event where victory was just a happy accident. Raven laughed as she described their rules. Safety third, fun second. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. If you're not bleeding, you're not leading. Volex's team exchanged uneasy looks. They signed legal papers full of odd warnings, "Won't sue if you get shot or exploded." Then they were given paintball guns and joined a team called the Apocalypse Pony Express. Their leader was Matt "Tank" Rodney, a large man from El Paso who treated paintball like a serious sport. Tank gathered the team around a picnic table covered with beer bottles and a laminated battlefield map. "Welcome to Pony Express," he said. "We deliver death with a smile, pain with pleasure, and victory with style." His team was strange, a quiet accountant named Miguel who talked about math and probabilities, Sarah the calm veterinarian, Jake the movie-quote-loving college student, and Crazy Eddie, a wild man with a crazy paintball gun rigged with explosives. Volex's head spun. They had entered a war zone unlike any he had seen. The horn blew. Game on. Suddenly, the humans changed. From relaxed players, they became fierce, screaming warriors. They charged, dodged, and fought with reckless energy. One man yelled, "Witness me," and ran into enemy fire, only to be killed with bright splashes of paint. The chaos was terrifying and mesmerizing. Volex realized Earth was not a simple target. This was a species that turned warfare into a wild celebration, one no strategy book could explain. The paintball battlefield was alive with noise and color. Volex and his team moved cautiously, trying to make sense of the chaos around them. Every direction held surprises, shouting humans dressed in strange costumes, explosions of bright paint, and wild tactics that defied logic. Miguel, the quiet accountant, stepped forward calmly and called out to a group of players guarding a fort made of stacked crates. "Excuse me," he said politely, "I've run calculations on your position. Your chance of holding is just 3.7%. The humans blinked. One grinned. "You trying to scare us with math?" he asked. "No," Miguel replied. "Just telling you so you can decide what to do." After a moment's hesitation, the group surrendered, not because they were beaten, but because Miguel's numbers convinced them it was the smart choice. His teammates quickly flanked and tagged them with paint. Volex watched in disbelief. Humans used math and words as weapons, confusing their enemies instead of fighting with brute force. Nearby, another strange scene unfolded. A group of humans had trapped 3 opponents inside an old school bus converted into a fortress. Instead of demanding surrender, they began a strange, friendly talk. One joked about needing coffee and snacks, another offered pork rinds and a moon pie. The trapped players laughed so hard they could barely aim. The attackers' strange kindness was breaking down their will to fight. Zeke's voice was low, full of confusion. "They use friendship and humor as weapons. It is psychological warfare unlike anything I've seen." Volex nodded slowly. "Their approach is unpredictable and deeply disturbing." Then a new threat appeared. A player called the Reaper entered the battlefield, armed with a rocket launcher shooting permanent paint. Anyone he hit was out of the match. The humans, even rival teams, shared information quickly to avoid him. Their teamwork was impressive, showing sudden cooperation against a common danger. But once the Reaper moved on, they returned to fighting each other with renewed energy and respect. Volex realized the humans were pack hunters, cooperating only when faced with greater threats, then returning to fierce competition. As the battles continued, more strange behavior emerged. A wounded player dramatically died, calling out silly last words to his wife and kids. His wife knocked him down playfully before shooting an approaching enemy. Volex shuddered. Humans mixed war and affection in ways he could barely understand. Modar whispered, "Perhaps they are confused by constant warfare, but it seems efficient." The day passed with more surprises. Humans built siege weapons from garden tools, veterinary supplies, and spare parts. One improvised mortar fired paint grenades in perfect arcs, causing chaos on the battlefield. Sarah, the veterinarian, explained the physics behind the artillery with surprising calm. At the decompression zone, where players rested and socialized, Volex saw humans eating, drinking, and sharing stories about the battles. Enemies laughed together and exchanged tips like old friends. Zeke's scanners were overwhelmed. They weaponize friendship. They compete and cooperate at the same time. Volex sent a report back to his commanders, warning that Earth's species was unlike any other. Humans fought with reckless joy, confusing enemy strategies and ignoring the rules of war. That evening, the humans gathered around a campfire. Volex watched as they told stories of paintball battles with dramatic flair. They took turns sharing tactics and exaggerated heroics, learning from each other through competition and storytelling. He felt a strange mix of awe and dread. The next day brought even more madness. A massive elimination match began, 200 players fighting to be the last team standing. The battlefield was littered with paint mines and traps. Teams used smoke grenades made from barbecue supplies and coordinated attacks with interpretive dance. Volex's mind raced as he saw the human called Craig. An ordinary man with thinning hair and duct-taped shoes, Craig outwitted elite players with clever angles and reflected shots using a pocket mirror. His calm confidence was terrifying. Volex whispered, "This is a tactical genius." The final battle was chaos and beauty. One team fought with perfect military precision. The other ran wildly, screaming, hoping their chaos would win. And it did. As the screaming team celebrated, Volex made his decision. They had seen enough. The signal for emergency extraction came quietly through Volex's calm. The decision was clear, their reconnaissance was complete. Earth was no ordinary target. The humans' unpredictable and wild approach to combat defied every tactical model in the Thrax Dominion's archives. This was a species that turned war into a game, chaotic, brutal, and full of strange rituals. Volex and his team made their way to the extraction point, moving carefully through the forest. Paint-splattered humans still roamed nearby, some laughing, some shouting battle cries, others nursing bruises but eager for more. Tank, the heavy-set team leader, approached Volex with a trophy, a rubber chicken labeled "First Blood." His clothes were covered in paint of every color. "How's your first taste of organized mayhem?" Tank asked, grinning. Volex struggled to answer. "It is unlike anything in my military experience." Tank laughed. "That's why we keep coming back. You want to see something really cool?" He led them to a strange contraption built from garden tools and medical supplies. It was a paintball mortar, a device that launched balloons filled with paint in deadly arcs. Crazy Eddie fired a balloon, sending a perfect splash into a group of players. Cheers erupted. Sarah, the veterinarian, wiped her hands. The physics are surprisingly similar to delivering anesthesia. Volex shook his head in disbelief. As the day ended, Volex reflected on everything they had seen. Humans fought with reckless enthusiasm. They combined brutal aggression with deep camaraderie. They laughed while being killed, shared food and stories with enemies, and built weapons from spare parts. Zeke, still trying to process, said, "They have weaponized friendship. They fight as packs, but care for each other as families." Volex's mind was flooded with reports and data, but none fit. The humans did not fight to win in the usual sense. They fought because it was part of who they were, a wild, chaotic, and passionate species. That night, humans gathered around campfires, sharing stories that were part battle report, part legend, and part competition. They turned every fight into a story, every defeat into a lesson, and every victory into celebration. Volex transmitted his preliminary report to the Thrax High Command. He warned them, Earth was not a simple target. Humans were unpredictable, innovative, and terrifyingly resilient. The following morning, the final event of the tournament began, the Sunday Sunrise Slaughter Special. 200 humans entered a battlefield designed to push them to their limits. The last team standing would win. Chaos erupted. One team built a functional trebuchet overnight and fired paint-filled balloons. Another team advanced through smoke grenades and roaring fires. JJ, a sniper hanging upside down on a radio tower, picked off targets with impossible skill. Another team used synchronized interpretive dance to confuse and attack their enemies. But the most surprising was Craig, the insurance adjuster. Ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in skill, he eliminated elite teams with clever reflected shots and sharp tactics. He joked that he learned from Pool and Die Hard movies. Volex whispered in awe, "They are tactical savants hidden in plain sight." The final circle, a cleared area surrounded by cheering spectators, was the stage for the last battle. One team fought with perfect discipline and strategy. The other ran wild, screaming chaos. And chaos won. Volex stood, heart pounding, as the winners poured ice over themselves and chanted ancient human war songs. The rules had been broken. Order had been shattered. The report was clear. This was no ordinary war. Volek sat in the shadow of the campfire as the final echoes of battle faded into the night. His mind raced with everything he had witnessed: wild chaos turned tactical genius, brutal fights softened by laughter, enemies becoming friends over shared sandwiches. The human's way of war was something no Thrax had ever imagined. His team gathered nearby, trying to process the flood of new data. Zeke spoke quietly, "They are not like any species I've known. They fight hard, yet they value social bonds more than survival alone." Mulder nodded. "Their tactics break all the rules of war. They cheat, they joke, they even offer food to enemies mid-battle. Yet, they remain effective." Volex leaned back, staring at the flames. "They do not fight to conquer. They fight because it is their nature. They turn destruction into creation, creating stories, friendships, and even games." The human's campfire circle was unlike any military briefing he had seen. Warriors told tales filled with exaggeration, humor, and deep emotion. Each story was a lesson, a strategy, and a bond. Volex's communicator beeped softly. The next phase of observation began, monitoring Earth's night activities. He was wary but curious. As darkness deepened, Volex and his team watched as humans gathered to unwind. Music played, laughter filled the air, and a strange ritual began: truth or dare. Warriors shared secrets, teased one another, and tested limits in ways that seemed both innocent and fierce. It was a form of psychological warfare, but one that built trust, not fear. Volex realized the humans' greatest strength was their ability to embrace chaos without losing connection. They could fight and play, hate and love, all at once. This made them impossible to predict or control. When dawn came, the humans prepared for one last brutal test, the final elimination match. The battlefield was a wild maze filled with paint mines, traps, and explosive surprises. Volex and his team took their places, ready to observe the madness. The humans exploded into action. Teams ran with screams and laughter. Some built armored vehicles from lawnmowers and pool noodles. Others danced their attacks in wild, synchronized moves. The battlefield was alive with energy and invention. Volex watched Craig again, moving with quiet confidence. Each shot was precise, each move clever. He was a reminder that beneath the chaos was sharp intellect. The final moments came quickly. The disciplined team tried to hold their ground. The wild team overwhelmed them with sheer unpredictability. As the victors celebrated, Volex made his final decision. There would be no invasion. Earth was not a world to be conquered by order and rules. It was a planet where war was a game, chaotic, emotional, and terrifyingly effective. From the quiet safety of their cloaked ship orbiting Earth, Volex composed his final report. The words came slowly, weighed down by everything he had seen. The humans were not the easy conquest his commanders had hoped for. They were something else entirely, a threat born not from weapons or numbers, but from their unpredictable spirit. His message to High Command was clear and urgent: after deep reconnaissance, I formally request termination of all invasion plans for Earth. The species is unlike any encountered. They do not fight to win by conventional means. Their technology is primitive, their strategy appears chaotic. Yet, their psychological resilience and tactical unpredictability exceed our highest models. They treat war as recreation, a social ritual filled with cooperation, competition, and relentless creativity. They build siege weapons from civilian tools and share knowledge freely, even with their enemies. Their recreational warriors innovate in ways that surpass professional armies. They fight because it is who they are, not for conquest or survival. Recommendation: reclassify Earth as threat level Omega. Do not engage or contact. These beings are psychologically hazardous. They fight because it is Tuesday, not because they must. Our invasion would fail spectacularly. Valex paused and added a personal note, request early reassignment to desk duty, preferably far from Earth. Therapy unit requested for my team. Also, the humans have invited us to next year's tournament. I lied when I said we'd consider it. Do not consider it. The response came within hours. Earth was quarantined indefinitely. Valex's retirement was approved. And, oddly, he was promoted for preventing the greatest military disaster in THRE's history. Back on Earth, life continued unaware of the alien invasion that never came. Humans prepared for the next blood splatter fest, their wild weekend of paint, chaos, and laughter. Craig, the insurance adjuster, quietly planned his strategy for the coming tournament. He was blissfully unaware that across the stars, he was now considered one of the deadliest tactical minds in the galaxy. Valex looked once more at the spinning blue planet below. He thought of all the humans he had met, the fierce warriors, the storytellers, the friends and foes entwined in their dance of chaos. If we are lucky, he said softly, they will never learn the universe is supposed to be a rational place. The ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth peaceful and undefeated, a wild heart beating in the vastness of space.